Before we begin tonight's journey into history, take a moment to settle in comfortably. Dim the lights, relax your shoulders, and allow the noise of the modern world to slowly fade away. Tonight's story is a calm and original retelling inspired by A Little History of the World by Ernst Gombrich, recreated in a peaceful, reflective style for relaxation and sleep. Together, we will travel back through time, to the quiet streets of Vienna, and to the beginnings of a book that introduced generations of readers to the story of humanity. So wherever you are listening from, close your eyes if you'd like. Breathe slowly and let the story gently unfold. Chapter 1. The Book That Began in Vienna. Imagine the city of Vienna in the middle of the 1930s. The streets were filled with music drifting from open windows, old cafes buzzing with conversation, and horse carts still rolling across stone roads polished smooth by centuries of footsteps. In this city lived a young man named Ernst Gombrich, long before the world would know his name. At the time, Gombrich was not famous. He had just finished studying at the University of Vienna, and like many young people during those difficult years, he struggled to find work. Days passed quietly. Books filled his room, but opportunities were scarce. Then, one small moment changed everything. A young publisher named Walter Neurath asked Gombrich to look at an English history book written for children. The book was supposed to be translated into German for a new educational series called Knowledge for Children. A friend studying medicine in London had sent it over, hoping it might be useful. Gombrich read the book carefully. But Gombrich was disappointed. The stories felt dull. The past seemed trapped beneath heavy words and lifeless explanations. History, Gombrich believed, should feel alive. It should feel like listening to a storyteller beside a fire late at night. Finally, Gombrich handed the manuscript back and said something bold. "I think I could write a better one myself." The publisher smiled and replied with a challenge. "Then write a chapter." And so Gombrich began. Not long before this, Gombrich had exchanged letters with a young girl whose parents were friends of his family. She often asked him what he was studying and why it mattered. Gombrich enjoyed answering her questions because he had discovered something important. Even the most difficult ideas could be explained simply if the person explaining them truly understood them. Gombrich had grown tired of the complicated language used in academic writing. Too many scholars, he felt, buried simple truths beneath grand words and tangled sentences. Gombrich believed history should belong to everyone, especially curious young minds. So Gombrich wrote a chapter about knights, castles, and the age of chivalry. Walter Neurath loved it immediately. But there was a problem. The deadline for the translation project was approaching fast, and Walter Neurath needed an entire finished book in only 6 weeks. Most people would have refused. Gombrich accepted. At once, Gombrich began planning the journey through history. He did not try to include every event or every ruler. Instead, Gombrich asked himself a different question. Which moments in history changed ordinary people's lives the most? Those were the stories Gombrich chose to tell. Each morning, Gombrich read through books in his parents' home, including large encyclopedias stacked with knowledge from every corner of the world. Later in the day, Gombrich visited libraries across Vienna, searching for writings from the periods he described, wanting the voices of the past to feel genuine and close. And every evening, Gombrich wrote, one chapter after another, day after day. Only Sundays were different. To understand why, we must meet a young woman named Ilse Heller. Ilse Heller had arrived in Vienna from Bohemia several years earlier to study piano. She became a student of Gombrich's mother, Leonie, who soon introduced the two young people to each other. Before long, Gombrich and Ilse Heller spent many weekends together, wandering through Vienna's galleries, gardens, and old streets. Their friendship slowly deepened into love. One Sunday, while walking through the peaceful woods outside Vienna, Gombrich and Ilse Heller stopped to rest in a sunny clearing among the trees. Gombrich reached into his jacket and pulled out several handwritten pages. "Would you mind listening?" Gombrich asked. Ilse Heller agreed. Years later, Ilse Heller would laugh gently while remembering how difficult Gombrich's handwriting was to read. "It was far better," she said, hearing him speak the words aloud. Those pages were part of the little history book Gombrich had begun writing. And so, each Sunday during those 6 busy weeks, Gombrich read his newest chapters aloud to Ilse Heller beneath the trees or during their walks together. Listening carefully, Ilse Heller helped shape the rhythm of the storytelling without even realizing it. You can still feel it in the writing. The sentences move softly, almost like someone speaking quietly beside you. At last, after 6 weeks of intense work, Gombrich finished the manuscript and delivered it on time. The book appeared in 1936 under the title A Brief History of the World for Young Readers. Readers loved it. Many reviewers assumed Gombrich must have spent years teaching children because the writing felt so natural and clear. Before long, the book was translated into several languages, but history itself was beginning to darken. By then, Gombrich and Ilse Heller had moved to England, where they would build a new life together. In Germany, the Nazi government eventually banned the book. Not because of Gombrich's background, but because officials believed the book encouraged peaceful thinking rather than war. Still, the seed had already been planted. Years later, Ernst Gombrich wrote another book, this time about art and creativity throughout history. It would become The Story of Art, one of the most famous art history books ever published. Yet the little history book that started everything quietly remained tucked away in a drawer in North London. For decades, the manuscript slept there. Then, many years after the Second World War had ended, a German publisher rediscovered it and was captivated by its warmth and energy. A new edition was released, this time with an additional final chapter, and readers once again embraced the book. Translations spread across the world. Even so, there was one language missing: English. Strangely enough, although Gombrich later wrote nearly all his books in English, he delayed translating this one himself. Gombrich worried that British readers might not connect with a broader European view of history. England, he thought, often focused mainly on its own kings and queens. But as Europe changed during the 1990s and countries became more connected, Gombrich slowly reconsidered. Encouraged gently by Ilse Heller, Gombrich finally returned to the book where his journey had begun so many decades earlier. By then, Gombrich was already in his 90s. As Gombrich worked, he reread passages he had written as a young man in Vienna and smiled with surprise. "There is actually a great deal in it," Gombrich admitted softly. "I really think it's rather good." Gombrich updated parts of the text with new discoveries about prehistoric humans and sought help from experts, including members of his own family, to improve sections about Buddhism and Chinese history. But time moves quietly forward for everyone. Before Gombrich could complete every revision he imagined, Ernst Gombrich passed away at the age of 92. Friends and colleagues carefully completed the final work with deep respect for his vision. Some additions Gombrich had hoped to make. Stories about Shakespeare, the English Civil War, and the growth of democracy remained unfinished. Yet perhaps that was fitting, because Gombrich never wanted history to feel complete or closed forever. To Gombrich, history was not a list of dates to memorize. It was an endless human story, a story meant to be explored with curiosity, wonder, and imagination. Near the end of his life, Gombrich explained exactly what he hoped readers would feel while opening his book. Gombrich did not want anyone to study nervously or prepare for examinations. Gombrich wanted people to relax, to simply listen, and to travel through the past as though they were hearing an old story told gently beneath the evening stars.